Well, welcome to Modeling Time with me, Brian Banna. In this quick episode, I'm just going to go over the preparation for soldering new wires onto the electrical pickup strips that go on the inside of the side frames on the trucks, and show you what I do to protect the bearing surfaces and things like that. So this will be a quick video. Let me get set up and I'll just go over real quickly what I do. Okay, although this is a unimaginative step, it is something that needs to be done as part of building the model. So I like to paint my pickup strips. You can see these ones are painted, but I'm going to grit blast them again because I got to put longer wires on them. These typically come with the little clips that go on top, like the typical Kato fashion, but I like to have solid joints for my electrical pickups. So wherever I can, and most of the places I do, I solder the wires on. So what I do is I use a pipe cleaner, and I just insert it through the hole, and then just cut it off. And what that does, when I go to grit blast them, it keeps the grit from blasting the bearing surface on the inside of these pickup strips. Then when that's done, I'll come back and I'll solder the wire onto them, or clean these up, wash them and all that, get all the grit dust off of them, and then I'll solder wire onto them. I typically solder on a 6-inch piece of wire. That's plenty of wire to be able to, not have any binding or I just don't want to have short wires when I go to solder everything to the DCC board. So right now I'm going to go ahead and grit blast these, and then I'll get some wires soldered onto them. All right, so there's all the pickup strips all grit blasted and ready to have wires soldered onto them. Now, an alternative, if you don't have a grit blasting booth, which I imagine many of you don't, you can use Mr. Hobby metal primer. It's a clear coat basically, but it allows paint to stick nicely to metal. So you could do the same thing. What I would do first though is I would wash these, because there's some in the cups. There's a little bit of grease and sometimes some grease around the outside, actually on the back side here where the wheel tip goes through. So I would wash those really good in warm soapy water, dry them off, and then spray them. Put these pipe cleaners in there, and then you can spray them with the metal primer, and then you can put your top coat on. Depending on what color your truck is going to be is what color I paint these. These will be painted black. So let me go ahead and get my soldering iron and everything, all the wires cut and tinned and everything, and then I'll explain to you about, not necessarily about how to solder wire onto these, but what you want to pay attention to when you do solder wire onto these. All right, so we all know how to tin wire. I'm pretty sure of that, but this is part of the model build, so I'm going to show you how to tin wire. Just bear with me for those that know how to do it. So I've got these all tinned, and we're going to take this wire, we're going to flux it all the way up to the shielding. Take my soldering iron, wipe it off on the sponge, get some solder on there, and simply let it float. And that's tinning a wire. And you want to do that to all your wires. So that takes care of that portion. Now, let me set up. Let me turn the camera off. I'll set up and I'll show you why you want to pay attention to where you're soldering your wires to these pickup strips. Okay, now let me point out why you want to pay attention to where you're soldering these wires and you just don't solder them anywhere on these pickup strips. Let me zoom in here just a little bit. Let me get this going so I can keep the zoom coming in. Alright, so this is the wire I use. And some may ask, why don't you just use the wire that comes with the model? And you can do that. And I don't like the length of it. I think it's a little too short. And the other thing about that wire that comes with the Kato models is it's a little stiff. I like this ultra flexible wire. It's really, really nice. And I like the longer lengths so that I have freedom in where I can solder it into the model or the board, or, you know, if you got a short board, you know, you got the extra length that can reach over to it. So let me quickly go over why you want to pay attention to where you're soldering the wire to. This is the Kato side frame, I'm sorry, the gear tower. This is the front of the gear tower, or the back. So it's always either front or back. So when you put this, let me see, okay, so it goes this way. So when you put this pickup strip in, do you see this post right here? You don't want to solder anything that's going to interfere with that post going up against the pickup strip. So this pickup strip goes in like this. You'll notice on the back, well, this one's all soldered over. Let me find one that's not. Here we go. See these two lines right here? You always want your soldered wire to be behind this post. So it'd be on this line over here. So, or actually on the inside over here. So you want to, before you solder your wire on, figure out where your pickup strip's going to be going. So you're going to line up your get another one of the gear towers, and you're going to put a pickup strip here. You're going to put it in the right orientation so that the cup is out. You're going to put a pickup strip here. Now you know, okay, I have to solder to this side on this one, and I have to solder to this side on this one. Now they're not ambidextrous. They can't swap, because if you, okay, let's mark this one. So if you solder a wire here and then you go to put it on this side, that mark I just made goes right up against this post. So make sure you know where that post is in relation to where you solder on your pickup strip. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these soldered together. Okay, and just to follow up with what I was just talking about, a nice way to make sure you know which side you're wiring to is just line them up, divide it out. I've got 3 units, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's enough for 3 locomotives. I just used a Sharpie and put a dot right on top of the side that it needs to solder to. Now you want to solder on the axle side and not on the frame side. So I'll be soldering on the inside where the axle goes through the cup. Alright, one last tip on soldering your wires to the pickup strips. You'll notice I have the mark right here where I want to solder, the side I want to solder to, but I'm going to solder across the whole top. So I don't have to worry about getting in the way, and there's enough side frame that'll cover that up. Now, remember, the mark you have on here is towards the rear of the truck. So you want to solder in the opposite direction. So I want to solder this wire going this way, not going that way. And I'll show you after I finish soldering this on why that is. So let me put some flux there. Got everything sticking to me. All right. So those are all done. Now the reason why you want to do that is because you want to tie your wire in right here. So if this is the the clip where your wire goes, you want to be able to go and clip it into that. So that takes care of soldering all these wires together. All right, so the last thing to do before paint is to clean up all of the flux, the excess flux. I use lacquer thinner on a Q-tip and just clean it all up. Then I come on, and there's little sharp tips on these ends here, so I just cut them all off. So everything's cleaned up, tips are cut off and cleaned up, and everything's ready for paint. So now these and the gear towers will get painted black. All right, so that takes care of cleaning up the pickup strips, protecting the where the axle tip goes into the cup, grit blasting them, soldering wires to them, and cleaning it all up and getting them ready for paint. I know this wasn't an exciting video, but it's all a part of building these models and getting them ready to run, and all the, a good solid electrical pickup is very important, and that's why I don't like to stick with the little clips that clip onto the top of the pickup strip. I'd much rather have a soldered solid connection. So hopefully you got something out of that, and I really appreciate you following me along in this build. So thank you very much.